Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. You know, Waco has an award-winning crime writer, crime mystery, fiction, but short stories. Micheal Bracken, I am so happy to welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Of course, we know each other through the Waco Symphony.
Yes.
Because you are recently retired as our marketing director, and we hated to see you go, but I do understand the whole wanting to retire.
Well, it's hard to call it retirement. I'm basically moving from working 7 days a week to working 5 days a week.
Well, because your writing really has kind of captured a lot of your attention.
Yes. I've been writing freelance since I was a teenager, and this past year, things just took off wonderfully. And so I figured it's time to take advantage of that.
Okay, but now this particular genre, crime, am I correct saying it? Crime mystery
Crime fiction,
crime
mystery,
fiction?
they're all under the same umbrella.
Yeah, but what you gave me to read of your some samples of what you've written are in the short story format, which I love. It's that's really, I think, my favorite thing. So what kind of led you to that particular venue as opposed to a full crime novel?
When I started, I actually wrote, I think, 5 novels, and they all were published, but they were published by small presses, and I was earning more money from the short stories.
Really?
And so it made sense financially to write more short stories, and then it just kind of builds on itself. And, 10, 20 years later, you realize your entire career is short stories. So, and it's worked out very well for me, but it is odd that I think, should I write another novel? I go, I'm doing too good with short stories.
So how long does it take you generally when you come up with an idea for a story?
It really varies. I have some stories that I've written in a single day. Those are rare, but I've done it.
Yeah.
And then there are some stories that take me 10, 15 years. I get the idea and I get started, but I hit a block of some kind. I don't know what the twist is, or I don't know what the clue is, or I don't know how the story should end, and it just sits there. And then at some point, the light bulb goes off. I know how this one ends. I'll sit down and finish it. So
what kind of piqued your interest in the whole crime thing? I have to say, it's a little salty.
Some of it.
Yeah, some of it, and a little graphic. So,
some of it.
Yeah. So, what kind of led you to that in that direction? Did you always love reading these kinds of stories, or?
Well, I always loved reading. When I was a child, we moved around a lot, and the first thing my mother always did was find the nearest library.
Yes.
And get a library card. And so I started out in the 8th grade. I told her I wanted to be a writer, and so she bought me a typewriter.
Really?
Yeah, so I knew early on what I wanted to do. But what happened is, when I first started writing, my best friend and I were going to be science fiction writers. Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein and so on. And my first professional sale was a science fiction story. But early on, I sent a story to a magazine, a more general interest magazine, and the editor sent it back, completely revised it. I mean, I was a kid, basically.
Yeah.
Revised it, retyped it, and sent it back, said he loved the story, but the publisher didn't want science fiction. Did I have anything else? Sitting on the corner of my desk was a 1.5 page opening to a story that I'd stopped because it wasn't science fiction.
Right.
It was a mystery, and so I wrote it, and he bought it. So I wrote another one, and he bought it. And I wrote a third one in another magazine about it. I go, maybe I'm not a science fiction writer. Maybe I'm a mystery writer. And that's pretty much what shifted gears. I mean, I read mysteries. I obviously still do read mysteries. But it wasn't my first dream. But like that editor's just slight push made me discover I'll be a writer, but maybe mysteries are the way to go.
That's fascinating. And you say you were young when all this was happening.
Yes.
How prior to college, or?
Oh, definitely. I wrote my first professionally published story when I was 17.
Really?
It appeared in print when I was 21, so it took a few years to actually get published. And my college career was kind of I did a year, dropped out, went back several years, did a second year, dropped out. Then many, many years later, after I moved to Waco. I finished my college at Baylor. I was 48 when I finally graduated.
Really?
So I was writing. I have a degree in professional writing, but I was already writing professionally before I even entered
For
the program.
years and
Yes.
years, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's fascinating. Well, that kind of brings me to. I mean, I love the stories, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about each one of them.
Okay.
But I think I'd like to get a little more into your background. Where are you from? And you say you moved, and your mother found a library. So, tell me a little bit about yourself, Micheal.
I was born in Canton, Ohio.
Oh, really?
And when I was before kindergarten, we moved to California, where my mother was from. And then all over the Bay Area, what's now called Silicon Valley, lived there, moved from there to Tacoma, Washington, was there from 6th through 9th grade, back to California, in Northern California, a small town called Fort Bragg, right on the coast, and then there through high school. Then I moved to Southern Illinois, then up to Chicago, then to Mississippi. And
You have moved a lot.
I have moved a lot. And even though I moved in each of those places, like in Central California, we moved several times within that area.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I've lived all over the place.
Yeah, and I'm sure that helps in your writing as well. I mean, I'm thinking some of the settings. One was Deep South Texas. Have you spent a lot of time?
Well, I've
there?
been in Texas since, I think, 1994.
Yeah.
So I've been, mostly in Central Texas, but I've traveled around the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a good feel for that. Well, so what brought you to Waco was
It was actually a
going
job
to
offer.
Oh, it was a job.
Yeah.
And because you were working in marketing, copywriting, and that kind of
Actually,
thing.
I started out in publishing, typesetting, proofreading.
Really?
On the production side.
Uh-huh.
And so I moved here to work for a publishing company, and that job didn't last very long, but I was here, and so I stayed. So.
Well, and of course we know, in industry-wide, print has kind of taken it on the chin.
Yeah.
Do you find a lot of what you're writing is online? Are they digital
No, most
publications? Are there like magazines or?
There are digital publications.
Right.
Most of my stuff sells to print magazines or anthologies. But yeah, sometimes I sell to digital publications. And there are a great many publications across all
Apparently,
different
yes. I mean, at all the different ones that you've had, it seems like it's a different publication that you received a nomination or an award from. So the most recent award, let's talk about that. Tell me about that, because I know you've been nominated for a lot of things, but this was something that you won.
Actually, last year I was nominated for 4 different awards, which that's 4 awards in 1 year is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I was nominated for a story I co-authored with James A. Hearn, who lives in Georgetown. Our story, Blindsided, was nominated for an Edgar Award, which is the top award in the mystery field. Then I had another story nominated for a Seamus Award, which is the top award specifically for private eye stories. And then I had 2 stories nominated for Derringer Awards, which are specifically for short mysteries, and one of those won.
So tell me which one.
Oh, mind blank.
Sorry. Let's see. I'm looking at all these. Let's see. Well, I'll get to it because I want to go through.
The one that won was the Downeaster Alexa.
There it is. It's right in my hand. Downeaster Alexa,
Right.
And this is something that is set up in the New England area, right?
Yes. That story was published in an anthology that was crime stories based on the songs of Billy Joel.
Really?
So the Downeaster Alexa is actually a Billy Joel
Joel song.
And I use that as my inspiration.
How interesting.
Yes.
So this is a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing.
That's it. I did not know that.
The past few years have been several anthologies. I just got invited to write for one based on the songs of Genesis, and I have a story coming up in one based on the songs of the Beatles.
Oh,
Another
really?
coming up.
Oh, just think what you could write for Eleanor Rigby.
Yeah, somebody else got that one.
Oh, man.
And then
What an interesting
I have
song.
one coming up in an anthology based on the songs of Waylon Jennings. So there are.
I love this idea.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, talking about the Downeaster Alexa, there was a lot of twists and turns in this one, and even though it is a short story, is there like a certain number of words that qualify, or how does that work?
Well, a short story generally is between 1,000 and 5,000 words.
Okay.
That's just a general guideline. And then once you push over 5,000 words, you start creeping up into what are called novellas or novelettes.
I got
and those
you.
are usually 10,000 to 20,000 words. They may be a little longer.
Right.
But when you're writing for an anthology specifically, the editor of the anthology will give you a word count. Say, I want stories this length. So you either take your idea and condense it to fit, or take your idea and expand it to fit.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
And do they tell you which song, or do you kind of have a
It depends.
how quickly you get your email back? I want this one.
For this particular anthology, I was told which album the song had to come
Okay.
from.
Oh,
so I
good.
listened to the album, I read all the lyrics, and go, well, which one speaks to me? And so I chose that particular song. One I'm doing for the Beatles anthology, the editor gave me a particular one. He said, we don't have enough George Harrison songs, so write a story about this George Harrison song.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
And of course, I guess, I immediately wonder, if the person who wrote the lyricist composer of the song were still alive, do you try to reach out to them and what were you thinking when you?
No, you
just
try
that's not
to
it.
do
This
that.
is all just totally in your imagination.
Right. You have to be very careful when you're doing something based on. I mean, you can't take write a story literally from the song.
Right.
Like if you did.
It's just an idea.
It's just an idea. What does that song tell you? And for Downeaster Alexa, it gave me the setting, very much so. And it gave me some interesting elements about the setting that I could then interpret in a different way. So.
That is just awesome. I mean, that's great. And it did receive the Derringer Award from the Short Mystery Fiction Society.
Yes.
So is this like a membership thing that you're in? How does that work?
Yes. The Short Mystery Fiction Society is a group of people who read, write, edit, and sometimes just read short fiction, as opposed in the writing community, novelists always get the glory. So at some point, 10, 15 years ago, a bunch of short mystery writers of short mystery, they're not all short writers, writers of short mystery.
You're a literalist.
Decided, well, we needed something just for us. And they started the organization. And so it rewards, and through those awards, the short mysteries. And so,
And I'm sure just to get your name out there more too. Yeah. And so then other folks see that. And that's wonderful. Yeah. Okay, you mentioned Blindsided, and this again is a co-author situation with James A. Hearn of Georgetown. And this was in Alfred Hitchcock's mystery magazine.
Yes.
Very cool. And this was a nomination for the Edgar Award. What do you know anything about that award, what that means, Edgar? Who's Edgar?
Edgar Allan Poe.
I wondered if it was Edgar Allan Poe.
The Mystery Writers of America, who sponsor that, are the oldest organization of mystery writers in the U.S.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're the oldest in the world, but the oldest in the U.S., very respected. I actually got elected to the board this past January.
Did you? Congratulations.
But the Edgars are pretty much, if you've been, just being nominated for an Edgar just takes your entire career up to the next level. And so it was amazing to have been nominated. And, had to go to New York to the awards ceremony, and it was
big time.
Truly
the whole
big time.
Tuxedo thing and all that. Yep,
exactly.
Oh,
and
red
sitting
carpet
there with people like Michael Connolly or very extremely well known writers.
Yeah,
go,
right.
Oh, hey, I'm here.
Pretty heady stuff.
It is.
Yeah, I'm curious how it works to collaborate with somebody else. So how did you go about doing that?
Okay. Well, Andrew, actually, his first published story was in an anthology I edited called The Eyes of Texas, which was private eye stories set in Texas, his first published story. And turns out he's in Georgetown, so we got together.
It's pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, so his wife and my wife and the two of us, we all get along. So we've gone to dinner a few times, and I had this story, Blindsided, that I'd written part of. But I don't know much about football. But it had to be a football story for this story to work.
Right.
And so we're at dinner. He lives and breathes Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
So he knows, he doesn't play it, I guess, but he knows football. And I said, I've got this story. And that's how it started. And he brought a lot of the football to it.
Right.
And I brought the basic structure to it. And then we worked together, add a scene, take out a scene, revise a scene. We did a lot of revising to get it where we wanted. And we worked together, and then we had it all written. Thought we were done, and both of us are lucky. Our wives are involved in our careers, and they both read this story, and they said, you went past the ending. You got to cut some. So
interesting.
After you grumble and say, then we went back and looked at it, and they were right. We had gone too far.
A little too far.
So we cut it until we were happy with it. And then in a good collaboration, one writer always gets the final draft. And generally I ask for that when I collaborate. So, and that helps smooth everything out. Sometimes you see a bad collaboration, we go, well, so-and-so wrote this paragraph, and so-and-so
you could tell,
wrote that.
right,
You
yeah.
could tell. But so I did the final draft and sent it to Linda Landrigan at Alfred Hitchcock's, and she liked it, and obviously the Edgar judges liked it.
Yeah.
So.
It was great. It was another great story. Family dynamics. I really love that aspect of it. I think maybe my favorite one is this next one I want to talk about, and that's the Aloha Boys.
Yes.
Because of the setting.
Yes.
I noticed you didn't mention the name of the university. I think you said the university. You referred to the university. I was kind of looking for that. But,
yeah.
But
it's fiction. So
yeah, but we talk about everything from Ketox hamburgers to,
it's a private eye store set in Waco.
It's definitely set
in Waco.
So much fun, just that part of it. I enjoyed, because of the setting. But I mean, a pretty gripping crime scenario, and I mean, it truly was a page turner from the standpoint of what's happening next with what he's discovering. Your private eye. Yeah. So again, this is a Derringer Award nominee by the Short Mystery Fiction Society. Right. Again.
So, the Aloha Boys, the protagonist, the private eye, Morris Ronald Boyette, who his best friend calls Mo Ron, works out of Waco, and I've written several stories about
on him. Franklin, in fact.
He was on Franklin, and he's moved over to Washington.
Yeah, that's right. That's kind of like Rogue Media. Started out on Franklin, moved to Washington, and now on Webster. So yeah.
he started out in a building that's no longer on Franklin. It's been replaced. So he had to move. So although it is fiction, I do try to keep it close to reality.
Yeah, right. With all the
buildings and
gentrification and things that are happening in Waco. Yeah,
right.
I loved it. I mean, just that part of it was fun for me. But yeah, it was definitely sort of disconcerting. I mean, it was upsetting to me that you even how do you come up with these things? I mean.
I just do.
Really? I mean, you seem like a nice person.
Well, yeah. See, some people go to therapy. Some people write short stories.
I gotcha. All right.
But I've been writing I've sold about 1,200 short stories over the course
Have you
of my
really?
career.
Yeah.
So coming up with ideas is no longer I even think about it. I just have them.
You just have them.
Yeah, and I go, oh, okay.
I'll write something on that.
So, for example, this story, I was actually approached by an editor who wanted long-form, novella-length private eye stories for a series he was doing. And so I figured, well, let's bring Moron back to the page.
I see, yeah.
So I start with Moron and figure, what's he going to do this time? And had to give him a client, had to give him a situation, and start from there. And then as things go on, little pieces of, if you've read prior Moron stories, you'll see pieces of other stories or characters from other stories coming back to the fore.
Okay.
But I hope it's not something that somebody who's never read a Moron story would go, oh, what's that?
No, and I had not read anything other than what you shared with me. But it makes me think of Lynn Russell, the former CNN anchor that I was able to interview on Zoom here for this podcast. And she has become a crime mystery writer, and her protagonist is P.J. Santini, and so she has several different novels. She's writing the longer form, but her P.J. Santini's a former news anchor. It's just loads of fun.
Yeah,
loads of fun. So you're having a good time doing this. Apparently, you say it's therapy, but
it's not really therapy, but it's like people have voices in their heads. Don't usually become writers, but those of us who do, We turn them into stories and novels.
Well, we have another to talk about. We're going to take a quick break first, and when we come back, we'll learn a little bit more about Micheal and a little bit more about disposable women. So stay with us.
911, what's your emergency?
Do you hear that? It's coming from the house.
It's coming from inside the house? Do you mean, could it be?
The Poltergeist. New from Rogue Media. Two haunted hotties talking about haunted places. Every episode we dive deep into the darkest places and give you a bit of history.
We're getting spooky in all the right places.
You've gobbled your last ghoul.
Follow along for the craziest and spookiest stories with Debbie's Dark Tourism. The Stanley Hotel,
Winchester House,
The Alamo,
Hotel Monte Vista,
and more spooky places. Find us at _Poltergals. POLTERGALS.
Look over your shoulder. It's us,
The Poltergals. Wherever you consume the podcast, you can find us there.
Frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Mike.
And we have a fantastic new podcast to tell you about. Bros, Foes, and Heroes. It's the two of us looking into the world of comics, breaking down some characters that you may have never heard of, and some that are just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so Zach comes up with a character each time, and I go into it just completely blind. I don't know who this person is or what their abilities are or anything, and basically I guess we kind of go over their origin story and just some of the ridiculous stuff that maybe, especially Golden Age stuff.
Oh, Golden Age stuff is always the best, and we will make sure to highlight all of the shenanigans and just absolute weirdness of everything.
Yeah, that's right. So subscribe today and follow us on Instagram at Bros, Foes, Heroes.
And if you don't, I know where you live. Not really, but please subscribe.
Frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hi, this is Sarah,
And I'm Carter.
and this is Some of Our Thoughts.
We're two Southern sommeliers, and we want to share everything we love and know about wine. We started hanging out during quarantine and cooking and drinking and listening to music, and we just thought this would be a great way to bring everything we know to you guys.
We will make wine knowledge and food pairings easy and approachable. So put on your favorite vinyl, grab your favorite glass of wine, tune into our show, and let's have some fun.
Wine and
vinyl.
So check us out on roguemedianetwork.com or wherever you get your favorite podcast. We'll be talking about a lot.
And we're back with Micheal Bracken, who is a crime mystery fiction writer, primarily the short story format, but novellas as well you have written, and you've written novels in the past. We mentioned another one that you had shared with me. This is called Disposable Women, and this appeared in Tough. It was that's a compilation or
No, Tough is actually an online publication.
Okay, there you
And
go.
then what they do is every couple of years they select a handful of stories and put them in a book. But that one appeared online.
Okay, and it was nominated for a Seamus Award by the Private Eye Writers of America.
Correct.
As another professional organization you're a part of.
Yes.
That's cool. So, and this is the one I mentioned, being set in South Texas, which I thought was really, because you truly brought that part of the country to life, having gone out to West Texas a year ago, and I was really visualizing what was happening here. But this is centered around the situation that we're all familiar with, and that's folks coming across the border, trying to carve out a life in Texas.
Yes.
And remain under the radar and so forth.
What happened actually several years ago, I wrote a story called Quarryville, Texas, set in West Texas, for an anthology of that the Private Eye Writers of America put out, Private Eye Stories. And since then, I've written several stories, all set in West Texas, that center around Quarryville, and this story's in Chicken Junction, in a fictitious county in
Obviously,
West Texas. The towns and the cities are all fictitious, but I tried to make them as close to what I have seen and experienced in Texas, and specifically in West Texas for the settings. And so in this particular story, Private Eye, whose company wasn't his company, he worked for a corporate or private eye security firm, and it went under because of some shady dealings. So he
wasn't doing it.
He wasn't doing it.
The boss was, but he got painted with this brush.
Right, because it's a company's bad. Well, no matter how good you are, the company's closed, nobody wants to hire you.
Yeah, right.
So he has gone down to Chicken Junction, Texas. He's living in, I think it's his aunt's or his grandmother's mobile home, and he's just trying to figure out what to do next. And he falls in love with an immigrant who is living, 6 to a trailer or whatever, and working at the the meat processing plant.
Right.
And then one day she doesn't come home. And well, he's a private eye, and he wants to know what happened to her.
Right,
and
right. He's fond of her, and
Right. That's the investigation. What happened to her and why, and I won't tell what happened to her. But,
no, I mean, again, another page turner from that standpoint, because you're not expecting the twists that happen with that, or anyway.
Yes.
I won't say any.
Yeah.
I won't say any more. But so what I want to talk to you about is how can folks find your writing?
Well, the best way is to go to crimefictionwriter.com, which is my website, and there is a list of almost everything I've ever had published and where it's been published.
Right.
That's the easiest way. And where possible, there are links. Also, you can go to amazon.com and look for my name, and there's a whole lot of publications there where you can buy directly.
I see. Yeah, because I wonder how do you monetize this? You're paid for sending your story, but do you get residuals, if I can ask you?
Every deal is different. Sometimes you
okay.
get paid a flat rate up front.
Right.
Sometimes you get an advance plus royalties. Sometimes you get just royalties. So it's a constant juggling. Well, where's the money coming from now, and who owes me, and things like that. But I mean, there are multiple different ways that the money comes in.
Very good. Well, it really is so delightful to talk to you. I'd like to end these little visits. It's a little questionnaire similar to the one the late, great James Lipton would use on Inside the Actors Studio. And so this is a little my take on this. Right? Yeah, it is.
Study, I swear.
Okay, I mean, this guy, you're a wordsmith.
Okay.
You're a writer. Been doing it since you were a little kiddo.
Yep.
What is your favorite word?
Accepted. Because when an editor tells me that...
Yeah, good. Not rejected.
Exactly.
Okay, so I guess I just answered my next quote. What is your least favorite word?
Yeah.
Okay, I got to fill into that one. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally? Kind of a key question for someone who's putting these thoughts and this creativity on paper.
I think that's a two-part answer. Because I'm not just a writer, I'm an editor. As a writer, what turns me on is having an idea that is so good that it just has to go on paper. And now, you get lots of ideas and you write lots of stories, but sometimes there's an idea you go, oh my goodness, this is the story, this is it.
Yeah.
And I've had a few of those. Most of them I have to work out, but when it just comes to you, it's like...
And
Yeah,
that's right. The angels singing. Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
The other part is, as an editor, I edit a mystery magazine, and I'm associate editor of another magazine, and I edit anthologies of short stories. And what turns me on is when I find a new writer who's not ever been published, and I pull their story out of the submission pile, and it's like, why hasn't anybody published this writer before?
Yeah.
And so what happens and it feels good then. But years later, it feels even better. For example, with James Hearn, since I published his first short story, he's been co-nominated for the Edgar Award.
Sure.
He's made a cover story of Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine, and this year one of his stories was selected for inclusion in the Best American Mystery and Suspense. So his career has skyrocketed in a short time. Another writer that I published her first short story 2000-2001 in an anthology. Her name is Ann Apteker. She's gone on to become a novelist. She's won Goldie Award, Lambda Award, multiple nominations. It's like, I didn't create their abilities. I didn't shape their careers, but I was the first one to recognize it.
And gave them that opportunity.
And gave them that first opportunity.
Yeah.
And that turns me on as an editor.
Absolutely. That's got to be so rewarding for you. Well, then, conversely, what turns you off creatively or emotionally or even spiritually?
I get frustrated. It doesn't turn me off, but I get frustrated sometimes with the slow pace of publishing.
Really?
Like I said, my first short story, I wrote it at 17 and didn't get published till I was 21. There's a process that things go through. And sometimes I wish, well, this is brilliant. It should be published now.
Yeah, what's the problem?
I get impatient. I think all writers get impatient.
Yeah. What sound do you love the most?
Laughter. I mean, there's nothing better than laughter.
Yeah. What sound do you hate?
Fingernails on a chalkboard.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
I'm
I know.
Thinking about it has me queasy.
Yeah, you took me right there. Okay, what other profession would you have liked to try? It sounds like you always knew what you wanted to do.
Well,
but
rock and roll musician is number 2 on the list, and my mother did buy me a guitar.
All right.
But apparently I have minimal musical skills. I can't even find a bucket to carry whatever it is tune that I'm trying to do. But yeah, I think I might have liked that.
Yeah. What profession do you know you would not do? What job would you not want?
I would never want to be a doctor because I don't want to have somebody's life in my
hands.
I've
heard other people say that.
That's too much pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, if I have a bad day, it means I wrote the wrong words. A doctor has a bad day, they lose somebody.
It's not a good thing.
Yeah. And
you're right.
I don't want that.
You're right. Okay, then finally, what do you want to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates, Michael?
I liked your last story. That would be awesome.
Oh, Micheal Bracken, you are awesome. I mean, I haven't had a chance to really get to know you, even though we've kind of been working both through the Waco Symphony, and of course you're now retired from that, and we certainly wish you all the best. And you just got many more great stories in you, I know.
Oh, I sure hope so.
Well, it's been a delight. Thank you. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again on Central Texas Life. Bye-bye.
Central Texas Life with Ann Harder is part of the Rogue Media family. Be sure to check out our other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate this show 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.